This should work. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first meeting of 2024. I'm Gloria Gonzalez Cook. I'm president of the Utah chapter of the GSHA. And I want to let everybody know we have a new officer, but we have now starting a new year with the president, me, and then Chuck Labato has taken over vice president. Wherever you are, Chuck.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. You moved. And Albert Garcia is remaining as our treasurer. And Priscilla Johnson will remain as secretary. But also we have, I don't know if Melinda is on this morning, but Melinda Wilcox has agreed to be kind of our co-secretary. She will step in when Priscilla isn't available. So we're very excited to start a whole new year. And we do have Manuel Romero, who is he's the head of the getting speakers. He's the head of that committee, and so we're really happy to have him on board with us. And so anyway, those are the new officers.
And you forgot me.
And I'm sorry, John Martinez is the liaison with the national. So he gives us a report every month on what's going on with a national. And that's a tough job because they're hard to keep up with. They have been. But they also have new officers, so John will be keeping us abreast of all that. So with that, I want to welcome our speaker this morning. I guess I've known Jeff for over 30 years. He's in his little bio, he said he's been married to Lori Herrera for 37 years. And I was living in New York City at the time, but I do remember sending a gift. And my mother was still alive, so I know she was at the wedding. And I guess, Jeff, I met you, I guess, when my mother passed away, is really when I met you, probably for the first time. And then I found out when his father-in-law, whose ancestry he's been working on, Eli Herrera, when Eli passed away, that was kind of the first time you and I sat down and you were asking me questions about the family. And that was when I found out that Jeff was doing genealogy work. But he is just a persistent worker with the genealogy, and he's just done a lot. He has found so many things for me in my research. So I'm really excited to have Jeff talk about this new. I don't know if it was a project, but he put together a list of churches, or I guess in certain cities where he found baptism and marriages of people who came from surrounding towns. And this is regarding New Mexico, Colorado. And we will have that list. Priscilla has it. So when Jeff gets done today or later today, Priscilla will get that out to everybody who would like to see that. So without further ado, Jeff Johnson.
Thanks, Gloria. Thanks for inviting me again. Appreciate it. Let's see if I can share my screen and share the right one. Let's see. I think I want to share this one. SWAT team, because they've been targeted by swatting. But here's the difference. Okay.
It came up.
Can you see that okay?
Yes.
All right. So Family Search, for me, it's become a great resource for records. They have a tremendous amount of church records, especially the Catholic Church. I've also found, a side note, Lutheran church records for my Norwegian relatives. But with Family Search, I found
Excuse me, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is Dolores Brown, and I'm just wondering if everybody except you could mute because we're hearing some dialogue in the background.
I think it's coming from Manuel. So Albert, I think you need to mute everybody.
Or the second, where the responding officer shot and killed the homeowner because the officer thought that was the bad guy. So for people who are saying, what is this? It's a call to the police.
Good.
I think I muted it, Manuel. Okay, is that better? You can still hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
it's perfect now. Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
very good. So with Family Search, there's two main tools that I've been using is the family tree find and then the search catalog. And so with family tree find, I'll use that to see what records already exist. And then also I'll use it to find where records might be located. If I have somebody, excuse me, if I'm researching somebody and I know what town they're from, but I'm not sure where the parish records are for that community, is I'll use family tree find sometimes to see if somebody's already gone in and placed a baptism record or marriage record, for example, for that town. And then search catalog is I'll use that to actually get to the records. And with search catalog, it'll let you enter the town information or a county or state, and then you can drill down and select which town and which specific church that you want to pull the records for. So once you find the church records, you select the desired range, because a lot of times they'll be broken out to a range of records. And then since we're finding online records, there's a camera icon that's to the side that I'll show you to bring up the scanned documents that they've scanned into the system. So let me go ahead and bring up my my Chrome browser. So here's the menu for family search. So a lot of times you can go into your family tree if you've created one. If not, we can go right into searching for records. Like maybe you use Ancestry or Roots Magic or Family Tree Maker to store your family history information. So you don't necessarily have to keep your tree on this, but I also have some of my tree information that I share with my relatives, and because it's free, it's easy for them to also access it. So I mentioned the family tree find. So I'm going to enter somebody that I'm pretty sure is there. And you don't have to get too granular with the search information when you're just looking for records. In fact, I found it helpful. Sometimes less is better. So I know she was around 1920. And then it's going to pull up a list of records. Now I know that she was from Orifano. I have to apologize already for my Spanglish. But this looks like the record that I want to that I want to find or search on. And it looks like there's already a christening record, but we'll pretend that there's not, that we just see a birth record for her. And she's from Oakview, Huerfano. If I go, let's see if I can bring this this document up. Let's see. Well, I'll come back to that. For some reason, it's not wanting to go back to my other screen. And I don't want it to do that. Okay, so now I'll switch over. I know that she's Huerfano, so let me go to the search catalog, and I can search on that town. I want to click on it. I want online records. And I click on search. And then over here on this screen, you want to click on the places within there. I'll click on Gardner. There's try and remember. Yeah, with Gardner, the records start later on in 1912. And generally I found the records go up until about 1957. So we'll go back here and we'll choose Walsenburg instead. And then it's I don't know, kind of peculiar to me, but you want to click on the numbers here in the parentheses to see what the church records are. And so now we can see, okay, for Walsenburg, St. Mary's Catholic records are in this section here. So we go ahead and click on that. And then as we scroll down, we can see how they've broken up the scanned documents. So looking at Mary's record, let's see, she was born in 1920. They split the records here at 1920, but I'm going to hope that they've split the records kind of maybe in the June, July timeframe. So I'm going to click on the camera, and then it brings up the scanned documents. So last time I talked, I presented on how you could divide the records in half. So you don't have to scan through all these documents. They're in chronological order. So if you split them in half, you can go through and narrow down your selection of records. And usually you can get to the record that you want within about 10 or 11 searches. So I just split them in half, and then I double click on one of the records to see what date range that I'm in. And then let's see, I'm way low, 1911, so I'll go up higher and say 850 records will be my next choice. I'm still low, so again, I'll split that and go higher. And I'm still low, and I'll go way high now. And so right now, let's see, we're in 1919s. She's born May 1920. Let's see, I'll step up again. 11:30. I'm getting closer. Let's see. Oh, she was born in May. And these records, you can see the baptism is in the first column, and then the birth date is in the third or fourth column over. Let's see. What I do is I start with the baptism date equal to the birth date, and then go forward from there. And then sometimes I'll look for the person's name, other times I'll just look for the last name. So I'll scan up through the documents as I get closer in May. I don't see any cruises. Getting close. And there, I found a record. So it has her birth date, May 3rd, 1919. And I just noticed I have a mistake here. She was not baptized until a year later, in June 1920. So I need to correct that, or remember to correct it. So any questions on that process?
That's just a long time between her getting, her being born and her being baptized. Usually they're pretty close.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of interesting. So let me go back, and similar process with the marriage records. As I found her marriage record in Montrose, Colorado. So we'll go back to the search catalog, and then bring up Montrose. And sometimes this search, as you type it in, it's kind of predicting what you want to find. So sometimes you have to be careful with that. So let's see, we want to make sure Montrose City. Click on Montrose, go down to church records, and we want the St. Mary's records. And these happen to be all together: baptism, marriage records, so on. So I won't spend too much time searching, but same process, split them in half. See kind of where you land. Looks like we're still in baptisms, and generally they're in order of baptisms. Confirmations, I think, is next. Communions, Holy Communions next, marriage records, and then death records at the end. So if we jump up to like 450 or so, now we're into the marriage records. And I'll go back to her record, and in sources, what I like to do is I'll paste in a link to the record information for my relatives to make it easier for them to get to the record. So for that marriage record, I have a link that I've copy and pasted. And now we can go into the records, and fortunately they're right up at the top. With some of these records, especially I've noticed later on, like after the 1900s or so, is a lot of times they say baptism date, but sometimes these will be birth dates. But at least it gives you an idea of the town and date range that you're looking for. They have the parents' names and then the witnesses to the wedding. Sometimes in the baptism records, if I jump back to her baptism records, so it has the padrinos or godparents, and then like on this record above Mary's it has the marriage information. So that can be really helpful. So let me go back to my presentation.
Jeff, before you leave there,
Sure.
how do you copy and paste the source documents?
Oh, that's good. Good question. So what you can do is just click up here in the address field,
Uh-huh.
do a right click, make sure it's highlighted, and then right click and copy. And then you can come over here to add source and add new source, and then put the date information. And then down here in the web page link, you do a Control V to paste it in and name it. I take a lot of shortcuts, which is probably violating a lot of genealogy rules. But like I don't enter the citation information. For me,
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
just quick thing. So when you were looking at the microfilm, there was actually a link that would do this automatically for you so that you don't have to do this copy paste of the link.
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
See that attached to family tree?
Oh, I'm
Button?
sorry. You're right. Okay.
Now that may not always be there. Most of the time it is.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Oh, that's a good quick shortcut.
Once you have the records there, I guess you can't search by name, right? They don't have it that digitized, right?
Some of them do. Like some of the records have been scanned. It's kind of hit and miss what I found with those. Like, let's see if we can go back and see that. Let's see. Go back over here. Let me go to Walsenburg. I think that might have some. Oh, let's see. Okay, I know. Well, I'm pretty sure. Let me look at Taos. Okay, so if they do have indexes, they'll have a magnifying glass next to the camera icon. And then it'll bring up the results and then a search box over on the side. And then you can give a range of dates that you think the record might be at. And then you can click on, I think this brings up okay, so it brings up the record, and then I'm trying to. So sometimes it just puts you right back to where you're browsing the scanned documents again. And then you have to start looking through the documents. I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember if any of them go right to the document itself. I think if it's been a while since I've used that. Has anyone else used this and had it bring up a document directly for them?
You can add more details in the search if the name is very common, like Cruz and Mary. That might be a problem in finding the right record. So normally I need to give it more details.
Okay, that's good. Good information.
I think you have to depend too on how well the person before you did a search. The first search I did was on my grandmother. First name was Maria. I came up with the search that someone had input Ina, I-N-A. Says, I didn't know that was my grandmother's first name was Ina. Well, they always abbreviate Maria. So M-A, person doing the research took the big loop of the M and set it as an I. So her name became Ina.
Oh no. Related to that, sometimes I found like Jose and Maria are used quite a bit to start the names. So sometimes I'll just use like the next name, like Francisco or Jose Francisco. I'll just search on Francisco. Let's see. Any other questions in this area? I'll go through some more slides. Let's see, let me minimize that. Okay, so as I've been searching for these records, here's some of the things that I've learned along the way. When searching for marriage records, try looking at the oldest child. If you don't know the marriage date, is look at the oldest child and where they were born, and then search backwards through the marriage records from their birth and baptism date and location. Hopefully they'll be within maybe 3, 4, 5 years back. The baptism records, if you can't find it right off for the person that you're looking for, also look at the records for siblings, especially if somebody's entered a family information, and also include military records. So sometimes it helps to find like a person that's born close to one of the census years. So 1900, 1880, 1910, 1920, things like that. And then see if you can find their military record and get an idea of what town that it shows the person was born in and what their birth date is, and that could help you narrow the records down. And then, like I pointed out, baptism records sometimes include marriage and spouse information, sometimes the birth town, and also sometimes the adoption information. And then, like I noted, start looking at baptism records, beginning with baptism date, and then go forward from there. What I found is older records in, say, like the 1800s, their baptisms are very close to the birth date. Whereas as we get into the 1900s, the baptism dates start to increase out. And as you saw with my wife's grandmother, it was like a year out. Let's see. If you can find sibling records, use those to try and search them and find the records that you need. That kind of gives you a verification that you're on the right set of records. If you can find an older or even younger sibling that was baptized in a certain parish, chances are that the person that you need is in that same set of records. And then sometimes you need to go back and look at census information to see how the years line up with the siblings. Let's see. I don't have it noted here. Sometimes they like to round up the birth year. So if they're born, say, after July, a lot of times they'll round that up in the census information to the next year. Let's see. Also, searching in maps.google.com or google.com for towns. I'll go ahead and give you an example in this. Let's see if I can. Bring up one. So I was looking for somebody and I saw they were from Chico, Colfax, New Mexico. And I had never heard that town. And luckily, Google has some entries on it. Some of these towns are like old mining towns. They're now ghost towns. So there's some sites that'll give you information on where the town was located or what some of the other towns are around it. So that's handy. With this one, they actually had a map for it. So we can click on the center of the map and then start to scroll out and see, okay, where is Chico actually located? Now, in doing that, I know from my list of records that Springer Colfax has a lot of baptism and marriage records. In fact, I'll see if I can bring up this document. For some reason, my mouse doesn't want to go to my other screen. Let me. See if I can stop this for a second. And Let me stop the sharing for a second and see if I can get the document. And then I'll reshare. It's really strange. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. So this is the document that I put together as I was going through and looking through these towns for records. I started to forget where I found the record from. And so in the bolded items are the town where the records are held. And then the towns below that are the surrounding smaller towns that the baptism and marriage records are actually in the larger town. So Costilla, Taos, that's right close to the border. They have records from Amalia Garcia, Colorado, Cuesta, and so forth. And you just kind of scroll through the list. So if you're looking for a town, you might check these records first, especially if they're in western or southwestern Colorado or New Mexico. Let's see, let me go back to this. Let's see. And then when you search and you find the entry in Google Maps, a lot of times it'll have the county name. So you can also use that in your search of catalog records and family search. Let's see. Look at the marriage records, especially if performed by the Catholic priest. And what I mean there, let's see. Pause that for a second and I'll go back in here and I'll go back to my tree. Go back. Right here. So as I was searching for records for Mary, I found the Colorado statewide marriage records. And these will actually have the scanned document linked right in the record. Sometimes it takes a little bit for it to come up. And I'll wait for it again because I got impatient. If you see that it was performed by a Catholic priest, then that's a good sign for you. That's a good indication that the record's probably been scanned. And so then you can go right to the Montrose records and then look for the date range or whatever town that it comes up with. See, just to know, everyone's probably seen this. Sometimes incorrect data in ancestry records, military records. It's interesting. Sometimes I find that those or maybe a year off. I don't know if they're like trying to be able to enlist to support their family, or what their reasoning is, but sometimes it's like they're either a year ahead or a year behind. I've also seen incorrect data in church records, census records. Sometimes I'll get really strange results, like the month is nowhere near their actual birth month, and so on and so on. Let's see, I already mentioned this. Sometimes census years are rounded up. Hopefully the information is more accurate to the time when the record occurred. But even still, I found like marriage records, sometimes the birth years are off, because again, you're just, it's human nature. You're dealing with people's memory when they're later on in life. So anyway, be cautious. Hopefully baptism records are a little more accurate, but I've seen mistakes with that. My father-in-law, his birth date is different than what's listed. Let's see. As far as finalizing data, after you've found the baptism and marriage record, update it in the program that you prefer to use. Some people like Family Tree Maker, some people like Ancestry, Roots Magic, etc. Family Search is handy. Like was pointed out, you can actually just add it and attach it to the records. I put a thing about note keeping. I found this program last year called Google Keep. And so I'll bring that up real quick and show it to you. Keep is handy. First off, it's free. You just have to have a Google account. But you can create notes. And so I've created this baptism location, and then now it's stored in the cloud, and I can share it with people. So if I wanted to share it with Gloria and she had a Google account, I could share this note with her. I can also pull up the note on a tablet or a phone device. So if I'm at work and in a boring meeting, I think, okay, I need to enter some information. I can bring up the note and have it available.
That's pretty neat. I've never heard of this.
I hadn't either, to be honest, until about 6 or 9 months ago. One of the instructors up at Weber State mentioned it to me. I'm like, oh, that is pretty nice. And so I use it for a lot of different things. But yeah, as I'm going through, I entered some different notes that I want to keep track of. So it's handy for that. Let's see. And then I've entered just a couple sites that I found on the research process. One of these, it shows like a circle where you're researching records, you're documenting records, you're drawing conclusions, and then the circle just loops around. So these have some information that might be helpful to you. Is there any questions that anyone has? If you do have something, I put my email address at the beginning of the presentation. You're welcome to shoot me an email. Let's see. So in conclusion, thank you. And if you have any questions, let me know.
I'm just curious how far back you've taken Eli's, or how far back have you been able to get with Eli's line?
It's he's been tricky. Let me put it that way. Let's see. I'll close this. Go back to family search. And this has been one of the other reasons why I started to look at these baptism and marriage records is we get to his great grandpa, and luckily we had pictures for him, and so
Oh,
when I
wow.
was searching, I found this record for Diego Amador Herrera.
Well,
And
you're lucky. You have a picture that far back.
yeah, and we somebody had entered a birth record, but I have not been able to find his baptism record. I found some military records. So he's doing military service around the Clapham Union area. But that's been about it. And then I'm not sure if his father is correct. His wife, let's see. I can't remember if I found. Oh, I did find a baptism record for his wife. So 1836.
Wow.
So yeah, I started going through all their children, looking for records. And let's see, one of these, yeah. So this one, I can't remember if it was this family or a relative's family, as I noticed a lot of records in Las Vegas, San Miguel. And I even noticed, like, as you go through the baptism records, a lot of times they'll have the actual birth town. And so I noticed Sapeo was mentioned in the Las Vegas baptism records. And I had some other siblings. Let's see. Yeah, Sapeo for Magdalena. So on hers, let's see. No, I didn't find hers yet. Maybe it's Jose. Yeah, I think it's Jose Dolores. So on Jose Dolores, he was born in Sapeo, but his baptism was in Las Vegas, which if you look at the Google Maps, Sapeo's not too far away from Las Vegas, San Miguel.
Well, I was just curious because I was when I was looking at my DNA matches one time, I think on Ancestry, but I was clicking, no, I think it was Family Search. I was clicking on somebody that I know and to find out mutual matches.
Yes.
And Marianne, who is Lori's mother, Marianne dropped off. Marianne is my first cousin, so Lori's related to me through my mother's family, and Marianne dropped off, but I was still connected to Lori, and I thought, how is that possible? And so I, some of the people in our group over the last year or so, we've discovered that if we do the family search, searching for relatives, when you're right around each other,
Oh, yeah.
we go back about 10, 11 generations, but we are connected. And so I'm thinking it has to be through Chihuahua, when they all went back a lot of them went back to Chihuahua after the Indian uprising. So I'm thinking somehow I'm connected to Lori through, I don't know whether it's through Eli or her Eli's, I don't know which parent, but I have to be connected to Lori through Eli somehow.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
it's going to be going back a lot of generations. So
I know. I found I'm related to Lori. I'm like 32nd or 33rd cousins
Oh my gosh.
in the ancestry relationship. And I heard or saw an article somewhere where like King Charlemagne or someone like that. It's like a lot of people uh branch off from.
So do you have history then going to Colorado, New Mexico, or
I
He does
don't.
now.
oh
Yeah, yeah, that's what's interesting is it goes all the way back to Europe,
okay.
and that connects back from Europe, and even like even for oh, I think it might have been the Herreras is and again this is through ancestry, so you have to take it through with a grain of salt. But they
Yeah.
have the Spanish records kind of go through Spain and then connect up with German records. And yeah,
Well, the Holy Roman Empire included the Netherlands and different European groups.
yeah, yeah. So it's interesting how in a lot of ways we're all interconnected.
Yeah. But I just thought when I did that and I found out I was still connected to Lori without Marianne, I just thought that just blew me away. I don't know how that could happen because his wife's mother and I are first cousins, and we have we're both descended from two grandparents. Her father and my mother were brother and sister. So I didn't expect to be connected to Lori in any other way except through her mother.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was interesting.
yeah, and especially on that side where it goes pretty quickly to old Mexico
Oh
for
yeah,
the records
yeah.
for like Guanajuato and Leon, and so yeah, it's interesting. So here's that record for Jose Dolores Herrera, her great grandfather, and then it has his parents Amador Herrera and Juana Maria Baca, and the Padrinos. And then over here, luckily my handwriting's bad, so I can read a lot of these. Um, some of these have beautiful handwriting, others it's kind of hit and miss, but you can see Sapeo's listed here. You can also see the other towns that are listed. So sometimes searching cousins will help you um, get some ideas for where records might be located. All right. Any other questions?
No, I'm just hoping that artificial intelligence in the future will be able to go and interpret these handwritings because some of them are really bad.
They are. And yeah, even like census records can be horrible. And like you mentioned, they'll change, especially yeah, I don't know if Hispanic names get it worse than others. I've seen Norwegian names changed quite drastically too.
Yeah, that you get a fancy one like this guy after his signature, he just all that loop-de-loops.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, I have a question. Maybe everybody knows how to do this, but lots of times I'll be searching on Ancestry and I'll find a document for a relative. And then how do I transfer that to Family Search? You know, I do searches on Family Search and Family on Ancestry. So do those documents automatically get attached to that person? How does that work?
Unfortunately, they don't. So a lot of times what you'd have to do is download the document. And so it might be a PDF or a JPEG picture file that they've uploaded. So you'd have to download that from Ancestry, and then over in Family Search, you can upload the document again and attach it as a source.
Yeah, I tried to do that with Ancestry, but they wouldn't accept it as I tried to add source I tried to upload it and for some reason they wouldn't accept it. So I had to do the same search on Ancestry to get the same document.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I just found out about Family Tree Maker last year. And I like in Facebook, they have like the Ancestry users group. And so I was following along with that, and I saw where they were having sync issues, syncing between Ancestry and Family Tree Maker. And finally, Family Tree Maker came out with a 2019 version that resolved the sync issues. And one benefit that I saw with that is you can actually have the documents, pictures, and so on from your ancestry tree downloaded into Family Tree Maker as part of the sync process.
So is that an app or what? Family Tree Maker.
Yeah, Family Tree Maker is an app. It's actually a Ukrainian
Oh,
application. But and you want to make sure it's I can't pronounce the name, so I have to search on it. It's like yeah, McKeev, I think. And so you want to make sure that you're going through this site because you got to be careful of scammers. But there's just 2019 for Mac and Windows.
hmm.
It also search or excuse me, synchronize with Family Search. So in mine, I had to do 3 trees. I have 1 tree for Ancestry, and then Family Search. For some reason, it wouldn't use like my kids as a home person and synchronize both Lori's and my trees. So I have a separate family search tree for me, and another family search tree for Lori.
Yeah.
Pretty
Is
Jeff?
I don't go ahead. Go ahead, Priscilla.
The list that you sent of all the churches and baptismal records and that, is that just your files or what are they specifically?
So yeah, that's just my notes that I put together of the churches, Catholic churches where I was finding the records at, and then
Okay.
the small little towns that I was trying to find records for, and that they ended up being in the larger parish location.
Okay, sounds great. I'm having trouble finding the Socorro marriages.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
know anything about that?
I do. Let's see.
No.
I thought I had some coral. Oh no, maybe not.
Jeff, is there some way you could send us this list?
Oh, Priscilla has it. She's going to be sending that out.
Oh, okay.
What I think what I did for Socorro, let me do a Google search on that. But as I remember, oh, now it's been a while. I can't remember what the main towns are. Let me go back to the catalog and we can look real quick. My fingers will work. It seems like there's a lot of records in La Jolla, and it's in Lady of Sorrows, and I think possibly also Socorro itself.
Okay, that's perfect.
Seven.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's just another note. This reminded me, sometimes you run into a little bit of a challenge, like with Albuquerque, there's I think 5 or 6 different churches and parishes that have their own set of records. And sometimes they're like broken up in good year ranges, like with the newer parishes coming later on. And if you have older records, you can start with say like the cathedral and start looking at there. But don't forget about the later churches and looking at some of those records.
All
Yeah,
right,
you
thank
almost
you.
have to know the pattern or the migration stuff, because when I first started doing genealogy, I said, oh, that'll be easy because the Catholic Church in the town where all my relatives are from, the church is right across the street from my grandparents. I couldn't find any records there because that was not even a church, it's just a chapel. It's a mission. And the main church where a lot of the records were kept were in El Rito. And even that was a newer church because prior to El Rito, they either came from Abiquiu or from San Juan. The records are all over the place.
When I went to Mora looking for records, they accidentally had one book there, which was pretty amazing and falling apart. They really should take care of it. But they told me that after a certain date, all records had to be sent to the diocese in Santa Fe. So, do you know about that, Jeff?
I don't, but I've run across that, like for Nacimiento, I think Sandoval, New Mexico. It seems like those records are not online, but they're in a document or excuse me, a book, I think. And I can't remember if the GSHA has a copy of that book. Or if they're held by like the Santa Fe Catholic Church. But yeah, unfortunately some of these records are not online and they're in books or in different libraries. Albert's comment about the migration reminded me about Jemez Pueblo as an example. A lot of the communities surrounding it have their records within Jemez.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have you used or tried using the image search in family search?
I have a little bit, but it seemed like I was missing some records. And so sometimes I'll if I don't browse the record I'll use that search. Another thing that I found and you kind of reminded me about this is sometimes within the baptism records itself, they'll have an alphabetical index for the baptism records that are just scanned pages of handwritten like last names, first names, and then the baptism page, and sometimes they'll have like a number after the page for what row the record was on. So sometimes you have to use a combination of resources. The index sometimes is good, but again, sometimes you have to go into the actual scanned documents to see what you can find.
Is this technique, I mean, we're talking here New Mexico, Colorado, the United States. But if you go out of the country, because for instance, I have never been able to locate a death certificate for my grandmother, my father's mother, and but I've never even thought about it before. I'm not geographically that well acquainted with the surrounding area, and I've never really tried looking for, because the church in his hometown is the main church. I've seen records where people are coming from other little communities and they're all being baptized in that church. So I've always just assumed that's where I would find her records. And I've just never found anything.
That's a great question. Yeah, they're organized real similar. So, let's see. In Mexico, as an example, they have church records. They also have the community civic records. Let me just show this as an example. So for Juan Martinez, it has the bride and groom listed, and then hijo legitimate, the parents listed, godparents. On some of these records, I've also found grandparents are sometimes listed. There's some records where, especially in old Mexico, these are like 3 and 4 pages for the marriage record. And sometimes you'll have a set that has like the brief marriage information.
1 and 2 pages.
And then you have the actual marriage documents where it's like a 3 or 4 page with testimonies of either grandparents or parents are making regarding the bride and the groom.
I've noticed grandparents always listed in Chihuahua, where my dad's from, but I haven't always found that in Guanajuato, where my mother's family's from. But Chihuahua always has the grandparents, and that's how I verified my grandmother's other children were actually that I was actually looking at her record as the mother of those children, because my father's grandparents and the other children's grandparents were the same.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but I can't do that with Guanajuato. They don't always have.
They don't. And I found, like, even in Colorado and Mexico marriage records, I had one of Lori's grandparents, and all it had was the bride and grooms. It didn't have the parents listed, and I was I was taken aback by that. I was disappointed.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, did anybody else have any other questions? We probably should move on with our meeting, but I really appreciate you. I was so, I really, I showed your list to when we had our executive meeting, and so we decided, yeah, everybody would be interested. And so, as I said, Priscilla does have that, and she can send that out to everybody so that you can have that list. And but I think that's going to be really helpful to a lot of people in our group, who are so many. The majority really have the Colorado, New Mexico. Thank you, Ada. Have that new Colorado, New Mexico connection. And even in the States, I mean, I also have Arizona connections. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Jeff.
Hopefully it helps.
Thank you.
Put the video.
If you'd like.